Hello, and welcome to this presentation that is part of the 6th InnoDC meeting. I am Anubhav, ESR number 15, working at DTU Wind Energy with Professor Nikolaos Koutouloulis on the Blackstart and islanding capabilities of offshore wind power plants. And today I will be highlighting my research achievements in the form of papers that we have published during the last 2.5 years. I started, as all do, with a literature review to understand the problem and give some structure to it. In DTU, since we have to write a study plan in the first 3 months of the PhD, it was natural for me to extend it to first answer the why of the problem with the main motivation factors from a TSO and wind farm operator's perspective, and then break the problem into subparts, defining them as target states, identifying the main technical challenges associated with each stage, along with the state-of-art control solutions. The output of this work was a poster and paper presented at the Wind Integration Workshop in 2018. The next logical step, also part of the literature review, was to find the research gaps, i.e., identifying the gap between the technical requirements of Blackstart units from the grid codes and the current technical capabilities of state-of-the-art wind turbines. This involved a review of the network restoration codes and Blackstart service recommendations from different TSOs. The output of this work was a paper that was presented at the International Conference on Large-Scale Grid Integration of Renewable Energy in India in 2019. After completing all my courses along with the extensive literature review, I could begin working on the simulation studies. We decided to start with the overall energization sequence and then focus on the different aspects of it in detail later. This slide shows the preliminary results of a complete energization simulation of an HVDC connected offshore wind power plant, with the offshore wind power plant operating in islanded grid forming mode, followed by the offshore transformer and MMC cells energization, then the HVDC link voltage control by the offshore MMC, and then the onshore MMC controlling the voltage and frequency at the onshore point of common connection. Ultimately, the onshore block loading is done as the last step. This work began with the promotion project and resulted in a paper that was presented at the IECON conference in 2019. After simulating the entire energization sequence, we focused on to the different parts of the system. First, we studied the grid forming behavior of the offshore wind power plant in islanded operation. The idea here was to study how the offshore wind power plant, controlled as a voltage source by the different grid forming strategies, reacts to the different energization stages. This involved understanding the grid forming control, identifying the major different strategies, and then testing them in this specific and challenging Blackstart scenario. This work was presented in the Wind Energy Science Conference in 2019 and has been published in the Wind Energy Science Journal. Next, we focused on the HVDC transients, mainly related to the offshore network energization, i.e. the transformer and MMC transients, and the onshore MMC precharging from the DC link side. Sensitivity analyses were also done to illustrate the impact of a pre-insertion resistor and voltage ramp-up rates on the transients during hard switching and soft start of the offshore grid. The results have been disseminated in the recently concluded final conference of promotion and published in IET's Renewable Power Generation Journal. So having studied the higher level target states in the energization sequence, namely the controlled islanded operation of the HVDC connected wind power plant and how it deals with the different transients while doing offshore grid forming of the offshore network, the next steps are to look inside the wind power plant and ensure stable parallel operation of the wind turbines in the face of these demanding transients. Also, ultimately, it is of interest to see how these transients impact the DC link dynamics and what adjustments to the rotor side controller have to be made inside the wind turbine. Thus, currently we are adding details to the model, namely the switching model of the wind turbine grid side converter, transformer inrush and saturation, and rotor side control for maintaining the DC link voltage. The main transients of interest are synchronization and switching over voltages during the sequential startup of wind turbines inside the wind power plant, transformer sympathetic interaction and transient over voltages, along with an interest in the DC link dynamics. The studies we plan to do are to ensure stability and robustness of operation, for example, during the farthest wind turbine disconnecting and reconnecting, or during faults in soft start energization. Long-term studies also include capability assessment, i.e. system level studies to see how wind variability affects the voltage stability at the onshore PCC, and also analyzing, for example, the CO2 displacement by the grid forming wind turbines as they would replace the offshore diesel generator, which would ultimately result in cost benefits. Apart from the papers presented today, contributions have also been made in the form of posters. Example, to the recent ERA JP Wind Conference poster challenge and in the form of InnoDC deliverables. I would like to mention here D2.5 as it gives more details about the models that have been developed over the course of the project. If that is of specific interest to anyone, please feel free to contact me regarding any specific questions you have regarding those, and thank you for your attention.